welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candace Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Back at it again with another video, guys. I wanted to take a deeper look at this Jupiter retrograde in Aries. Those of you guys who are aware, it went retrograde somewhere around that new moon in Leo this last week. And I wanted to take a deeper dive to kind of see what's going to be happening in the midst of this transit, what it means, how it's going to be affecting each and every one of the 12 signs. Just some notable aspects that it's going to be making before Jupiter drops back into the sign of Pisces. So if you guys stay tuned to the end, I'm going to be pulling tarot cards for each and every one of the 12 signs, giving you guys my insight as to where it's retrograding in your chart and how it's going to affect you. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Drop me a comment. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Would love to hear from you. Thanks for joining and being a part of the Beyond the Veil community. We've got lots of new people who are interacting with the channel. We've been seeing lots of growth. So I just want to say thank you very much. Give me a thumbs up. Sharing is caring. And do consider hitting the subscription button or joining my memberships if you would like to support this community. To everybody else who's back, thank you for coming back and joining me. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get into it and let's see what's going on. So the Mercury retrograde, the Jupiter retrograde actually started on July 28th, and it's going to be happening all the way up until about November 23rd this year. So we've seen over the last several months, Jupiter left the mutable water sign of Pisces, moved into feisty, fiery Aries, and we saw that conjunction that also took place with Mars. So I'll be touching on what I'm seeing up until the fall. I will do another video probably when Jupiter drops back down into Pisces, just as a review, just to kind of see what's happening as Jupiter is stationing in those last few degrees of the entire zodiac wheel. So there's some stuff moving and shaking. So July 28th is when this retrograde actually began. Like I said, right around the time that we were having a new moon in Leo. Awesome moon. I mean, we saw a trine right as Jupiter was stationing. So those of you guys who aren't aware, all planets except for the sun and the moon do retrograde. So we see that as a period where the energies of that planet become more internal. We have to work a little bit harder to kind of get the juice out of that planet. And it's a period where we review, rework, and yeah, we feel things sometimes slow down. Outer planets, when we see these retrogrades, it takes longer to see the effects versus like a Mercury retrograde or a Mars or a Venus, which is closer to the sun. So Jupiter actually retrogrades once a year. So this is not unusual. This is the one time this year that we're going to be reevaluating all of the Jupiter themes. But I'm really interested that, right around the time of this new moon, I was telling everybody this is really positive. It's one of the better new moons for the rest of the year. We'll have another new moon in Sag season, which is going to also be in positive aspect to Jupiter, but by then Jupiter will still be retrograde. So there's been a lot of things that are getting ready to be revealed, right? Especially Jupiterian themes involving travel, our belief system, our philosophy, and anything in regards to expansion in general. Now, in modern astrology, Jupiter gets like super hyped up because he is the most beneficial of all of the planets. And Jupiter can magnify things to a point where it's like too much. So that's the one thing you guys want to take into consideration. So I think having seen that shift from Jupiter in a water sign, which is more, there's no real boundaries with Jupiter when it was in Pisces. There was like a lot of like psychic energy and emotional energy, and we saw lots of waterworks, literally or figuratively. And then when it moved into Aries, it was like, okay, we're starting something new. So we're going to see kind of like a review of whatever we released and let go of, and then what we started for ourselves. Now, specifically, when a retrograde happens, from our perspective, it seems like the planet is actually going backwards. Now, we know that in astrology that's not true. If we're looking at it heliocentrically, also planets don't go backwards. It's just from our appearance on Earth, it seems like it's going backwards. It's slowing down. So when we have a retrograde, I would give the same advice for anybody, regardless of the planet. We want to review, rework, re-examine, rethink, right? Anything in regards to those themes. It will be retrograding specifically from 8 degrees of Aries all the way back to 28 degrees of Pisces, okay? So I think that the fact that it's been stationing at 8 degrees, we're going to talk about that 8 or 9 degree Sabian symbol. I'll kind of give you guys my insight on that. is pretty prominent because it's actually saying like it didn't quite break the precipice of going into the second decan of Aries. So it's very personal for us. It's very literal of what am I doing? What am I believing? What are my motivations? You know, where is my personal kind of morals? Like, what are my stance on things? And that's certainly been a really big theme over the last couple of months, where we've seen things literally relating to law and our bodies. So that could also be Aries, because that's like the physicality, how we portray ourselves out into the world sometimes, and our immediate kind of gut reactions. So we've seen a lot of people who have been really adamant about their rights, their freedoms, kind of stuff like that. So yeah, if you have any planets from 28 degrees to 29 degrees, I would say 27, 28, 29 of Pisces, stay tuned, because you're going to see Jupiter cross that those specific degrees again in the fall. So you're going to get a video on that. But this is more for people who have placements like, let's say, between 9 and 0 degrees of Aries. I'm really going to be focusing on that in this video. Now, it will affect all of you guys. You're going to feel some kind of aspect of a conjunction in general. Even if you do happen to have planets in the late degrees of Pisces, you're going to feel it. It's just not going to be quite exact. But every astrologer has like a different orb. So for me personally, I will look at anything within 8 degrees, but I feel like we actually feel it when it's within 2 or 3. So anybody who has planets the first 9 degrees of Aries is, I would pay attention. Sun, moon, rising. If you have a personal placement there, like a Venus or a Mercury, that's going to have an effect on you as well. And so it actually, like I said, it starts the retrograde on the 28th of July, and it's going to be retrograde until the 23rd. Now, it will station direct on November 13th, and that will be at 28 degrees of Pisces. Now, usually when Jupiter is stationing, it's going to be about a month. So we're going to actually kind of feel it a month prior. So that whole mid-October until November, and it's not actually going to leave the shadow until closer to about January of 2023. So we're going to see that hanging out for some time. Let me just double check that, because I believe it was January. I want to make sure it's not later. January. No, I take that back. It's going to be later. So it's actually going to be closer to the end of February, beginning of March. So it won't leave shadow. So it'll go back into Aries, but it won't actually leave shadow until somewhere around like the mid-February 2023 period. So that's quite a long shadow period. So we'll still see it having the effects of the retrograde until we get into February. Besides that, yeah, I think the stationing is something to really watch out for. So like that whole first couple weeks of November, it's going to be particularly strong. Jupiter is exalted in Pisces, so it's like the traditional ruler of Pisces versus like Neptune. So if you like looking at traditional rulerships, you know that Jupiter knows no bounds in Pisces, right? It has no limit. So we see issues with flooding. We see issues with picking up things psychically. Our dreams and our subconscious is expanded. Anything of that regard is going to kind of get a big oomph. And it's going to be more emotional too. I think that's the other thing that we're going to see. Now, Jupiter in Pisces does give us the opportunity for peace, and also I think an expansion of anything metaphysical or anything related to mysticism. But I also believe that this is going to bring about issues in regards to health issues expanding, because Pisces deals with like hospitals. It deals with people who are seeking asylum, people who are lost. We may also see issues in regards to prisons. And illness and flooding. That's something else. I think we're going to see some really significant storms in the midst of this retrograde. Even if, at least here in the United States, like the storm season that comes at the end of summertime, even if we have Jupiter in the sign of Aries, I still feel like this is going to bring major issues with flooding, hurricanes, storms, like big storms. And because Jupiter has connections with Pisces and the sea, it's going to bring up a lot in regards to our relationship with the sea and with, you know, the health of the sea and that kind of stuff. But it's big storms in the ocean, whether that's literally or figuratively, because some of us are kind of encountering some big storms in our own life right now. Something I've been thinking a lot about is just learning more about like plastics and whether or not like recycling really is benefiting our planet. Like if this is like a huge scam, like working with recycling and plastics and all the things about like microplastics and things that are getting into the water. You know, fish are eating it, and therefore we're eating it. So, I mean, I think we're going to hear more possibly about that, about learning Jupiter about oceans, and you know, maybe there's going to be like more research being done in regards to oceans, because Jupiter can deal with like knowledge and expansion of some kind. So I think we're going to hear more about that. Now, when Jupiter goes back to Pisces, it's going to station around a fixed star, and this fixed star is called Shyet, kind of like how it sounds. But this star in particular, it can be more unfortunate. So it kind of has the energy both of Mars and also Mercury. Now, specifically when Jupiter is conjunct the star, we see themes relating to voyages, but also losses in regards to law and lawsuits, loss of belief in situations, loss of friends, relatives, and danger of imprisonment. Now, that's just the kind of like Astro King, you know, example of that. But this particular fixed star does have connections to extreme misfortune, right? Murder, suicide, drowning, all those fun, like late degrees of Pisces stuff. And because it's the nature of Mars and Mercury, it can be combative, and it can be about like an information overload. I would go back and look at when we were having some of these like triple conjunctions that were happening earlier this year, when Mars was going through Pisces and it was in conjunction to, you know, Jupiter and the moon. So I'm really looking at like the mid-May time. So Jupiter, yeah, early May. So Jupiter was at 29. We had Mars in Pisces. We had Neptune in Pisces. And it took us all the way to the end of May of 2022. And that's when we saw that all kind of go down. So you might be reflecting on what was going on in the world. Were we having issues with flooding? Yes, we have had these issues. Were we having issues with potential threats of like war and like all kinds of like weird stuff going on in regards to people's like mental or like health issues? So we've also seen over the last month or so, there's just been more emphasis on health. What's going on with you know, people's health, whether or not we're concerned about there being other viruses or other things going on in the world. Neptune does rule viruses. So even though Jupiter has nothing to do with Neptune, it's a completely different planet, the fact that it's retrograding to these late degrees does make me feel like we're going to see hospitals being overrun, some kind of health crisis that's going on, lots of expansion with people needing more health care. And we can see that also affecting laws relating to travel and where we can actually go. A lot of astrologers will say like, oh, Jupiter goes retrograde, we're going to have issues with travel, we're going to have issues also with the law and the legal system. And I think that that's very likely to happen because of this conjunction that's going to be taking place within this constellation. So it's actually connected to Pegasus. And Pegasus does have connections to like intuition, judgment, and this particular constellation, it does serve to protect against disease particularly, but there's lots of things concerning ships and changes in weather. So just given what's going on in the world right now, we're hearing lots of stuff about like, you know, military mobilizations, especially involving China overseas, where they're going to be having to kind of deal with, apparently what they're calling it right now is drills around Taiwan. So I would pay attention to that. But also we might see more in regards to like Navy, you know, deployment or certain things that are going on in regards to coastal cities. Now, Aries is a cardinal sign. It's the first sign of the zodiac. And Aries is associated with heat because it's a fire sign. So when we see Jupiter in a fire sign, it's going to move much more quickly. We're going to see it bring up the themes of physical fitness, physical wellness. We're reevaluating what it means to be courageous and to be daring, but we also might be seeing that reviewing things relating to Mars, because Mars rules Aries. So reevaluating some kind of global conflict, some kind of potential war situation, reevaluating everybody's rights globally in regards to themselves, their own personal rights. I have a feeling that a lot more people during this retrograde are going to be more or less like learning about their personal rights, like learning about the Constitution, learning about the various amendments and things that have been kind of, you know, the pillars of, at least in our country, you know, our freedoms and our rights. So I would encourage a lot of people, if you're wanting to learn about that, learn about that. Learn about your state laws, learn about your federal laws And if you have questions, ask somebody, because I think as Jupiter's going inward, you're going to be kind of reflecting on, what are my belief system? Is it in alignment with my rights? What can I learn about? Many people are going to make changes, I think, and redirect either their faith or redirect something about their education, and be reevaluating whether or not they need to go and actually learn new traits. There can be people who are going into new trades completely, or reevaluating if they need to go back to school, or if they want to be studying a language. A lot of people are also going to find through the retrograde that there's going to be changes in regards to school and education. That can be actual scheduling, changes with classes. We can see delays also with like lawsuits and anything in relation to publishing. So that can be something else that can come up, because that's very connected to Jupiter. So Jupiter will go direct on the 24th, okay? And then we'll return back to the sign of Aries on December 20th, 2022. What I'm really looking forward to, and I will show you guys this because this is actually going to come a little bit sooner, is going to be when Jupiter retrogrades back to about 3 degrees of Aries. Now, this is a pop quiz. Can you tell me why that might be interesting? This is going to be around the end of September, so this will be around September 24th. The reason why I'm looking at this is because it's going to retrograde back to when we had the Jupiter-Mars conjunction that took place earlier this year. Now, that first happened from May 28th to about May 29th, 2022. So Jupiter and Mars were both at 3 degrees of Aries. That conjunction in itself, it will be reactivated because it was direct. So now Jupiter's retrograding back over that. I personally believe that whatever we were focusing on, kind of whatever our personal motivations are, let's put it that way. Jupiter Mars is like my goals, what I want to learn, where I want to travel, what I believe in. And there's a lot of oomph behind Jupiter and Mars. I mean, it's like being shot out of a cannon. Like, that's how I interpret that energy. So many people were feeling, I think at the end of May, like, I got to do this. You know, this is what I believe in. This is my purpose. I'm taking action. It was direct. So now as Jupiter retrogrades over that degree, I think we're going to see somewhere around this period, around the end of September, some reactivation of that point. I think that it's also going to be about interacting with other people and how other people kind of help us formulate and kind of bring those things to life, right? And I'll tell you why. Because we're going to be seeing that there's a new moon that's going to be in Libra on the 25th. The sun and the moon are going to be in opposition to Jupiter. So we start seeing that, like, things are possible when we're working with others. Things are possible when we have legal representation, or we have counselors, or we have other people that can kind of help us become more aware. So if you're somebody who's going to be looking for a life coach, a counselor, a therapist, a partner, a business partner, things like that, we're going to learn in Libra season that, like, anything is possible if we have the proper support in our life, right? So unfortunately, with that, there has been a lot of clearing that's been going on for a lot of people. A lot of people have been sitting around probably asking themselves, how did I get myself into this situation? You know, what's going to make me happy? What do I truly believe in? And a lot of people have had to kind of learn through the Jupiter transit and also the Chiron transit that nobody's going to save you unless you get up and you do it yourself. That sometimes, you know, you have to be the person to kind of dig yourself out of a situation. And a lot of people have gotten more physically active. A lot of people have been more aware of how to take better care of their health. I think a lot of people have also really kind of experienced this, like, change of faith and this personal expansion into really going deeper into things that they want to learn about, or the life that they want to create. They're realizing that, you know, life is just going to pass you by unless you actively participate, Aries, in kind of creating your own reality. So what's cool is that I think we get a little bit of, like, feedback at the end of September from other people. And I love a sun opposed Jupiter. I think it's, like, very much like anything you touch turns to gold. Anything is possible. And we start to realize that with the support of other people, we can bring a little bit more in. Now, there's a Mercury retrograde going on then as well. And we're seeing, like, Mercury coming into conjunction with Venus. Venus in Virgo is definitely not the easiest transit. However, something magical is taking place around the end of September as Mercury retrogrades into conjunction with Venus and it trines Pluto. So we actually realize that we're more powerful when we're being of service. We're more powerful when we're helping learn to serve and giving to other people and kind of getting back down to maybe the basics, being a little bit more compassionate and understanding for other individuals. So more on that when we get into the fall. But I think we're going to get some of the goodies, basically, is what I'm getting at, as long as Jupiter is at this degree. So it's going to be about like the 24th, really until the beginning of October. So you want to look for the sprinkles coming in regards to whatever you set in motion, this most recent conjunction that was taking place in the spring. So reflect back on the 28th and the 29th of May. So then we have Jupiter, later in the year, it's going to go direct. And that's going to be around the 24th of November. But before that, Jupiter is going to drop back into Pisces. So we've got end of October, actually right around that eclipse point. We're going to have an eclipse that is going to be taking place in Scorpio. Right around that point, we have Jupiter drop back down, and that'll be around the 28th. So Jupiter goes back into Pisces. It's going to hang out between 29 and 28 degrees. Then Jupiter will go direct around the 24th here. So as that planet is stationing, remember, that kind of like 13, 14 of November on, super strong. Pay attention, like I said, if you have 27, 28, 29 degrees of Pisces in your chart, sun, moon, or rising, personal planets as well, you're going to be feeling that big time. And then Jupiter will return back into Aries here, right around December 20th, 2022. Now, the second, I guess I should say the third time, because retrogrades, we have something come into shadow, retrograde back, conjunct that point, go direct, hit it again. We're going to have Jupiter activate the 3 degrees of Aries again of that Mars-Jupiter conjunction. And perhaps this is like when the bigger plan is revealed, or you feel like you can actually make that big change, make that big leap of faith. And that's going to be taking place around mid-January. So right around mid-January, it'll come back to 3 degrees here around the 14th, and it'll be conjunct these degrees from January 14th through the 20th. Something else I haven't quite really touched on, I think, is also just the fact that Chiron has also gone retrograde in the last week or so as well. So to see Chiron in Aries, which is about kind of tending to our own wounds and being willing to be courageous enough to stand up and, talk about what hurts us, talk about where we feel isolated, talk about where we feel alone, and have to really learn that there is some magic in the process of really dealing with and confronting pain. Physical pain and ailments, sometimes with Chiron, we see, especially in Aries, migraines, headaches, issues with sinuses, issues with our nose, with our forehead, concussions, battle scars, anything relating to Aries, because the ram will kind of run into things. But also where we're hitting walls when it comes to not really getting on with the healing process, and that we're actually inflicting these wounds on ourselves because we're so unwilling to focus on ourselves, because we're projecting into the opposite sign, which would be Libra. So I think of the person who goes relationship to relationship that never really wants to heal their shit, and they keep finding themselves in that same situation, feeling alone and feeling isolated, until you finally really sit with it and you deal with it and you realize wow, I'm going through the same lesson. I'm dating the same person over and over and over, and it's a reflection of my own inability to sit with myself. So it's been really difficult throughout this Chiron Aries transit for many people. I think it's been putting us in situations and positions where we have to be alone to be able to kind of really start seeing what's wrong, being able to kind of work through that. So for both of these to be going retrograde at the same time, I feel like it's really bringing it all back to how do we heal ourselves? How do we take responsibility for our own issues? Jupiter retrograde themes in general, I think, is also just going to be about self-motivation. I could see where Jupiter going retrograde, we can get a little lax and we can become a little comfortable and a little lazy, and we're not as forward thinking, because cardinal energy, especially Aries, is very direct, right? It's very masculine. It's just linear. It's it's going from point A to point B. So when it goes retrograde, it's we can get a little lazy. We can fall behind. We can lose track of what our personal goals and desires are. And we can sometimes, I think, maybe think that we've done enough. So it's oh, I've worked enough, or I've done enough here. I don't need to do anymore. And I think that Jupiter retrograde is going to teach people that like opportunities are not just going to fall in your lap. Like there is a need to actually be open and seizing the opportunity to be able to catch all of the goodies, because it's not going to be as direct. So some of the goodies will come from just the self-realization, awareness, prayer, dedication to, to something in terms of your belief system. So we're going to have to do more of that to be able to stay connected and stay in tuned and be aware of when these opportunities kind of present themselves, especially during those conjunctions that are going to be happening again in the fall. I think that's really important. And be asking yourself, am I getting too comfortable? Right? Because I think for a lot of people, the reason why we've had some of the issues that we've had over this last 2-year period is we've realized that we've become too comfortable or complacent in certain areas of our life. That maybe the life that we're living is not really aligning with like what our true beliefs and values are. So there's a need to kind of reorganize that, restructure that internally. Jupiter's also known for being somebody who like preaches, right? And so I could see how some people are so quick to preach and tell other people and want to tell other people how the world should be and how things should work. But are they actually participating in making that change on a personal level to help things collectively? That's the big thing. I have Jupiter retrograde in my 10th house. I could definitely see how there's like a lot of like me knowing what to do and me being like, yeah, it's this simple. But I've been reflecting a lot just having it square, my Chiron and also my planets in Capricorn, being like, wow, I'm actually doing that. Especially just it being in an angular house. So it's been a big turning point for me in being like, talk about it less, do it more. Like, don't be focused on like teaching it. Let other people find their own path. Like, focus on what you're doing, because you need to be more focused on creating that change rather than telling other people what they should do. And so it's been just from a Jupiter retrograde native, that's something that I feel like is really important. I think some of us are also going to be reviewing our moral code and how we feel like we should or should not be behaving in relation to other people, or what we're participating in terms of classes and belief systems, and even our spiritual or our religious practices as well. And I think that we're holding ourselves more so accountable if we channel this properly to also start standing up for other people and other individuals, and be willing to kind of walk outside of the lines of what some of the either kind of like groups that we belong to. Like for an example, like, you might be somebody who considers yourself to be a Christian. And if you feel like a lot of people within your collective Jupiter are judgmental towards certain groups of people, or might be more negative or kind of condescending, and if you catch people doing that, you might be more inclined to be like, hey, that's not how we should treat people. Like, why are we treating people that way? Like, you're going to have to kind of deal with the wound of being willing to step up and like support and protect other people, because on a personal level, you know what is right and what is wrong. So because the world is going to be so challenging for the next 6 months, it's really up to individuals to be willing to step up and kind of cast aside old, outdated belief systems that no longer resonates with them and follow their own moral compass, right? We're going to be reviewing what we're grateful for. And I think that's a really big deal. I mean, I think that the way that I kind of look at 2022 is like, is the glass half empty or is the glass half full? That's what I've been trying to remind myself. I would encourage people to get more into the habit of reflecting on what you are grateful for and what you do have, rather than what you don't have and what's not working, because where intention goes, energy flows. And if you're beating yourself up, you're going to be finding that with this retrograde and with Chiron, you're getting stuck in this like perpetual loop of like identifying as a victim, or being the person who's the odd man out, or being the person who never really gets a fair shot. And we can get stuck in that loop as long as we're telling ourselves that story. That can literally be what manifests and what transpires. So we want to be focused on what we can change, right? What is possible, and working really hard to maintain positivity, and also just reminding ourselves of what we do have. If you're sitting around going like, I didn't get the car, I didn't get the job, I didn't get the girl, and you're doing this over and over and over, you're missing out on the potential to be able to break through some of that stuff, realize what you do have. Because I got to tell you, a lot of people, just talking to people, I talk to like 5-6 people a day, I start to look at things and go like, wow, I can be talking to somebody who's complaining that they didn't get a Range Rover because they didn't quite get the, the bonus that they were hoping for, or that their Tesla is, taking too long to be developed. And I'm talking to another client who is, you know, having to save up basically for 2 months to be able to talk to me and telling me that they're having a difficult time, you know, trying to even like take care of their family. Like it's priorities. And I'm not judging people. I'm just saying that when we take into consideration what is going right, what is working for ourselves, and try to remind ourselves that something that you're complaining about, somebody else is praying for. And I think that will really kind of put it into perspective for a lot of people. So we have to practice being grateful and really reflecting on what we have been blessed to have in our lives. In Aries, it's more like your health. It's like, oh my God, I'm so thankful, you know, that I'm healthy and that I'm not sick. Or I'm so thankful that I live in a country where I feel like I am protected by the law versus other places in the world where that's not really going down. Or I can practice my faith where I can't do that in other places. Rethinking travel, education, and legality. So I think because Jupiter is retrograding, we're rethinking these topics. We're rethinking, is it a good idea to buy a plane ticket? Is it a good idea to pick up and relocate? Do I really want to go back to school? Do I want to see what else is out there? Do I want to go to a trade school versus going to a university? There can be changes with class schedules. There can also be just some big changes going on in regards to the law. I mean, I think we're going to see more of that in Libra season, just given the fact that we're going to see so many oppositions. Let me roll this back here. We're going to see oppositions to Jupiter. We're going to see oppositions to Chiron. We're going to see a Mercury retrograde in Libra, which is going to make oppositions to Jupiter. So things are going to be reworked. We might see certain laws overturned. We might see certain laws reevaluated. We might see tweaks and changes. So that's kind of expected. And I also think that this is about, like I said, restoring our faith and our spiritual focus. So instead of being more external and active about I'm doing this, I'm doing that, this is what I'm doing with the body physically. It's how are we connecting that physical movement of the body or our actions with our belief system? So I think some people can be kind of going like, okay, am I going to get more out of my routine by getting on a treadmill and running? Or is it also going to make sense to like integrate a little bit of like stretching and, doing chanting or yoga or anything in regards to the physical body to be able to connect with the divine? That's Jupiter. Jupiter was the god of all of the various gods. So restoring faith and spiritual focus. Some people might be like, I'm going back to church, or I'm going back to a particular routine, or I'm getting into like reading my scripture every day. So internally, I think that we're going to be searching for something that we have faith in or something that we can believe in, even if that's you. So a lot of this can be about your own, belief in yourself, not so much self-esteem, but like what you're capable of doing. And while Jupiter is retrograde, it doesn't mean that we can't launch things. It's just, if you are a Jupiter-based chart, so if you're like a Sag rising or a Pisces rising, obviously this is going to be on a chart-by-chart basis. May not be the best time to do some of that stuff. We want to rethink and reevaluate before we take action. So for some people, we're thinking it over. It could be until the better part of, the mid-January period, or even into February or March, before we're seeing some of these things fully manifest, especially because Jupiter's going to go back to a water sign, which is like very fertile and very emotional, and it's more sensitive. And we're reevaluating if our emotions are in alignment with where we're going with our life. And then boom, Jupiter goes back into Aries, and then we start to see that action. So for some of you guys, it may benefit waiting a little bit. That's the kind of thing that I'm looking at. So just keep in mind, like I said, on top of all of this, that Chiron retrograde is going to integrate something about a healing past patterns, healing ourselves, healing patterns within. So that's a big piece of the puzzle, where once we heal that, we restore the faith, anything then becomes possible. So if you're looking at your chart, you want to take a look at where Aries is in your chart. If you don't know how to do that, you can go online, check out a calculator for natal charts. You put in your time, date of birth, your location, and it will cast that for you. And then you want to actually see where Aries is in your chart. All right, so let's read the Sabian symbol. And yes, it did retrograde back. Let me pull this back up. It has been retrograding back from 8 degrees, but you guys know how this goes, right? We actually want to look at the degree up. So I'm going to read for you, pull this up here. I'm going to read for you 8 and 9 degrees of Aries. So we would read 9, but because it's retrograding on 8, we have to kind of take that into consideration too. They're going to build off of each other. This is Sabian Symbols, Screen of Prophecy. This is my handy dandy book that I like to use. The Sabian Symbols are really great for just kind of giving you something to kind of mull over in terms of what that particular degree can be bringing. Now, 8 degrees always deals with like change and transformation. It's a Scorpio degree, so it can literally deal with like a rebirth, a letting something go to let something new in type of energy. And if you guys are ever wondering what I'm reading, you can check out my links below. I have a link to my Amazon, so if I'm using certain decks of tarot cards or certain books and I'm referencing, you guys can take a look at what I'm reading. All right, so let's go ahead and read. I'm going to read first 8 degrees and then I'm going to read 9. Okay, so 8 degrees of Aries, a large hat with streamers flying, facing east. The keyword is excitation. The theme is the winds of change. The symbol speaks to anticipation, expectation, and an innocent eagerness to experience the fullness of life. The image of a large hat with streamers flying faces east can easily conjure up the mental picture of a woman. But there is no mention of a woman on the index card pertaining to this degree, or even whether the hat is being worn. Elsie Wheeler could have seen this hat hanging on a fence post or perched at the head of a sailor in the 1928 post-Victorian era when this image came through. The lack of mention of the hat being worn suggests potentiality. For what occasion will this be worn? The wind is blowing from the east symbolizes change. The implication is that the image is that of change is being welcomed, the new opportunities that it brings. The fact that the hat faces into the wind indicates readiness to cooperate and meet new challenge. At its highest, the symbol represents friendliness, an innocent love adventure, and a new experience. Watch out for over-concern with appearance. The accent is on excitement and anticipation of change and adventure. Okay? Being alert, being ready, that kind of stuff. So this is, this will be taken into consideration, but this is the one that I think is more interesting. The 9 degrees of Aries. A crystal gazer. The keyword is acuteness. The theme is divination. The symbol speaks to a global perspective and the capacity to quickly grasp the significance of all facets of a situation at once and understand the meaning in coinciding events. The image of a crystal gazer emphasizes the world of potential as intuited or perceived through clairvoyant visions. Implicit in the symbol is the concept of dual imagery and mirroring effect wherein the man has his universe and his universe reflect each other and thereby create a means for predicting the future. On a practical level, this degree can symbolize a situation where all ordinary means for solving a problem has been exhausted and divinatory techniques are then turned to. At its highest, the symbol represents psychic sensitivity, prophetic insight, the ability to organize and plan in such a manner, and facilitating and conveying, facilitating the convenience of the actual need. Watch for snooping, prying, and the accent is on sensitivity, the need to find information and solve immediate problems. Logic and reason may not work well at this time. Solutions are discovered intuitively through psychic means. Your greatest advantage lies in looking into what is going to be needed in this not too distant future. I think about, I could look at this a couple different ways. I think about how just popular astrology is becoming right now, right? And the fact that so many people seem really interested in what does the astrology say, or what is this, you know, psychic saying, or what are the tarot cards saying, that like we're kind of living in a world where we don't know what's coming, and so people are really active in wanting to see into the future. But I also look at that and I'm like, where is this also possibly revealing to some of us, where people are actually spying and looking into what we're doing? Are we reading into things? Are people looking at what we're doing? Jupiter can be expanding something. So does this mean that people are looking into their rights? They're looking into their rights because they're preparing for the future? Does that mean that there can be some aspect of information being changed or manipulated or being scrambled? I don't know. That's just kind of the feeling that I'm getting. Or just on a personal level, where we're actually going to, I think, feel the safest and the most secure and the most knowledgeable is by actually looking into the future and seeing what themes are coming or what patterns are coming, or pattern, you know, predicting, whether you're looking at the markets, you're looking at astrology charts. So you're prepared, right? Because when Jupiter comes back to this degree, it's going to be like, boom, okay, we're doing this, right? Just food for thought. Just food for thought. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the 12 signs. I'm going to tell you guys where Jupiter is retrograding, what themes to be aware of, what may be taking place. Keep in mind, like I said, there's another video that's going to be coming later this year. I'll do it in the fall when it's getting back into Pisces, so we can kind of reevaluate and see what's going on then. As always, I am a Western astrologer, so you're going to make the most out of this by listening to anything in relation to your Western chart. You are more than welcome to also listen to your progress chart if that's something else that you want to do. Just something cool that I was kind of like looking at that can be helpful for some of you guys also is if you have either, like I said, a personal planet somewhere between 8 and 28, so 8 degrees and 0 degrees of Aries, or 29 and let's say 28 degrees of Pisces in your natal chart, in your progress chart, in your solar return chart. I would look at your solar return chart as well. If your Venus or your Mars is there, if you want to look at your Venus or your Mars return charts, you can do that. But I, just looking at my chart, and I was looking at a couple different charts, I noticed that like it brings that point up in my in one of my angles in my solar return chart. Let me just leave it at that. And also, I've seen other charts where that conjunction was in the like their progression. So if you're somebody who knows what this means, if you like to look at your solar return or if you like to look at your progress chart, that might be really significant as well, because there might be more revealed when Jupiter actually retrogrades over those degrees. So if you are a progressed or a natal of any of these degrees, or it's on an angle, or that happens to be your Venus or your Mars return, pay attention, because that means that when Jupiter retrogrades back, you're going to see more of that. That's going to unfold. So just a little tip there. You're going to get the most out of my readings by listening to your ascendant. So I would recommend listening to your ascendant. This is going to tell you where in your life this is going to take place. Listen to your sun. That's going to affect your desires, your goals, your career. It's relating to your ego, the sun. And you can also listen to the moon sign, which I'm personally becoming more and more fond of, because I feel like the moon does not get... Remember, it's our emotional needs, right? So listening to your moon sign can be really helpful, because it can kind of tell you what this is bringing up for you in terms of your private life, maybe your relationships, your home, and what your moon needs to actually feel safe and secure. All right, so let's start with Aries and Aries rising. So guys, Jupiter's retrograding back in your sign. So this is important. It's going to affect you quite a bit. It's going to be retrograding through your first house, which is going to be dealing with your body, right? So there can be changes in your body. You might be kind of going like, oh, Jupiter's been on my ascendant, I have been gaining some weight, because that can happen when Jupiter's on your ascendant or on your sun or your moon, or when it's opposing your ascendant too. Jupiter rules for you your 9th and your 12th house. So I think that when it comes to you and your body, or how you move, or your goals in particular, there's a sense of like reviewing your personal beliefs about yourself. There is a sense of also reviewing your optimism, or what you thought you knew, or where you were planning on going, or what you were going to be teaching. It can also be about delays, or reviewing anything in relation to journeys or traveling. So perhaps maybe as Jupiter retrogrades, if there are some things going on with your body, it can actually impact your ability to travel. I hate to say that. Jupiter will eventually go back into your 12th house, which can also be like this like cocoon period that's going on, where you're like, I'm studying something, I'm not ready to leave yet, I'm not ready to graduate yet, I'm still working on something that I'm working through, or I still need some more time. So that's really going to kind of like blast wide open for you, I think, in the first couple of months of 2023. But for right now, pay attention how this is affecting your personal beliefs, your journeys, anything in relation to your body as well. Some of you guys might be rethinking like teaching or education. Like, do I want to teach something? Do I want to publish something? Do I want to go back to school and take a course or take a lesson of some kind? The card that I got for you is the Lovers. This is representing a choice, right? It's like, do I do this or do I do that? And there's no real need for you to have to make this decision yet. I think that for everybody, the Jupiter retrograde is going to be about reevaluating which path you take, or what your motivations may be. So there's a sense of like you asking yourself, What do I love? Like, what am I in love with? This can be also about going back and forth and like really evaluating your values in general. This can be about unions, coming together with another person, you know, questioning whether or not that's going to be something that's going to work. So if you've got somebody that's at a distance, that's further away, I could see that. You know, Jupiter ruling your ninth house can be about law, legality, or actual distance in terms of somebody being in another place and whether or not you guys are going to realign. But for the most part, this is a positive card. I mean, it talks about unity and it talks about balance. Maybe that's within yourself and trying to find ways to get that balance so that way you feel more so confident when you go out into the world and you're doing some of the stuff that you're doing, okay? Positive. For Taurus and Taurus rising, you've got Jupiter retrograde happening in your 12th house. Okay, so 12th house is going to be your subconscious. This is your dreams, your intuition. This is your private spaces like offices and hospitals and other things. For many Tauruses and Taurus risings, I've seen this materialize as them being like, I need to get back into a faith routine, right? Or I need to get back into a routine of some kind. For some people, it's like, I want to go back to church, or I want to go back to temple, or I want to go back to chanting or something of that nature, because Jupiter is very spiritual. But I also feel like this is about some Tauruses being like, I need time alone because I'm frustrated, because I'm getting agitated. Jupiter in the 12th house can bring moods. What I have here for you guys is reviewing alone time, your spiritual motivations, and your desires. Now, Jupiter is the ruler of your 8th house, which is about joint resources and finances. It's also about intimacy and this entanglement that you have with other people. Jupiter also rules your 11th house. So I could see that this is about you reevaluating the relationship that you have with some of your friends also, and whether or not it makes sense to connect with them or to spend more time alone. Now, eventually Jupiter is going to go back into your natal 11th house. So the friends that you're meant to kind of align with will return back into your life. These might be really spiritual or kind of creative people. But some of you guys really do need alone time. And I'm wondering, because it's in the sign of Aries, if working out and being in nature can be the solution to kind of dealing with some of your moods or some of your frustrations. This is especially important for you right now, Taurus, because you have all these crazy conjunctions that are happening in your first house, which can be bringing up stuff with your body, or you're having fits, or you're getting agitated and you're kind of like snappy with some people. So I think Jupiter in the 12th is like, you know that a change is coming. You're getting anxious. You're tired of waiting. When you are alone, you might be feeling like your mind is racing. I would really encourage you to get into some kind of a regular routine where you're praying, okay? I don't care what you're praying to. You can pray whatever you want, but prayer being connected to Jupiter, and also Jupiter is in a Mars-oriented sign, which actually rules your 7th house. So you may find that praying with a partner, working with a spiritual counselor, doing some kind of devotional work with a romantic partner can be really helpful for working through some of this resistance to change and fear, or this anticipation of just knowing that something new is going to be starting, and it can actually bring you deeper, I think, into your faith, your belief systems, but it can also bring you closer in union to another person. Like for some Tauruses, it can be really great to like learn about Tantra or Kundalini or something like that, because it can have this energy of like embracing change and transformation and going deeper in terms of intimacy with another person. And if it's not you wanting to do that with another person, it can be working out by yourself. And that is kind of your outlet. And that's how you deal with some of these moods. The card that I got for you is the Devil. I'm wondering if this is about bad habits. Because the 12th house can be the house of undoing, and Jupiter is there. Jupiter relating, obviously, to your 8th house, which can be like things that are unhealthy obsessions, needing to learn to let certain things go. Your 11th house, which could be, groups and other people that are not good for you. Maybe you're feeling stuck in some way and you're frustrated. This can be about things that are toxic. This can be about things that are holding you back or holding you down. But I also feel like this can be about lust. This can be about greed, and where you're getting frustrated because certain things aren't coming full circle and you're so fixated on what isn't working that you really are getting stuck in this vicious like cycle, this pattern of, what am I going to do? Why is this happening to me? Why does this always fall on me? And you can really kind of get in your own head. So keep in mind that when this card comes up, you're able to break out of the chains. If you want to do that, you have to be the one to pull yourself out of that. It's going to take a little faith. Okay, so I think that that's what's really going to help you in the midst of this, and kind of just breaking something down and like getting out of like a rut or feeling stuck. For Gemini and Gemini rising, you've got Jupiter going retrograde in your 11th house. This deals with your friendships, your networks, your associations, your goals. Likely this has been a really positive period for you, Gemini. I mean, I think that you've made new friends. I think that you've seen lots of growth through, you know, networks and working with other people. You've been kind of seeing things kind of come together for you. Now, Jupiter is the ruler of both your 7th house of relationships and also your 10th house of career. It's retrograding in your 11th. So you could be finding that there is a need to reconnect with old friends, especially if it's going to positively impact your career or positively impact your relationships. Perhaps people from the past are coming back saying, hey, do you want to collaborate? Do you want to work together? Especially because the 11th house could be friends that are independent in terms of how they're working. So they may have some offer where they can kind of partner with you. If you are in a relationship, you can be reevaluating, are we on the same page? Do we have the same goals, right? And some of you guys who have made changes in your career or made changes in your relationships are now reemerging into some of your friendships after being gone for a little while and letting people know what's changed either in regards to your career or your relationship. Now, those of you guys who are partnered, I think that this is going to be like, are you guys on the same page in terms of what you're hoping to accomplish in relationships? Because your 7th house lord is involved, and perhaps maybe your partner is wanting to talk to you about taking the next steps in relationships and how you can be able to facilitate that, especially because the 11th house can be about your partner's view of love, romance, dating, or even having children. So for some of you guys, you might be having some of these conversations about whether or not that's the goal, and if it's going to align with some of the things that you're trying to set up for yourself in terms of your career. Keep in mind, Gemini, that you are going to be seeing that later in the new year, well, the end of this year, Jupiter will retrograde back to your 10th house. So it's going to be putting the spotlight on your career. Your career is going to expand, but also it might be about your public relationships expanding and more visibility with some of your relationships and working with some really significant people. Some of you guys will be working with new business partners. Some of you guys will be working with your spouses, okay? So it's time for you to review some of your friendships, some of your goals, what is and is not working for you. And it wouldn't surprise me if you return back to some friendships. That's kind of the feeling that I'm getting. But it's because you take action, right, Aries? The card that I get is the King of Swords. Well, that is you, Gemini. Wonder with words. Perhaps maybe you're feeling like you just want to talk to people. You want to reach out. You want to be direct. You know, you have something that you want to say to someone. You have something you want to write. It's about being more serious. It's about being more knowledgeable. It's about also having really high standards and sometimes having to put your head over your heart and having heart-to-heart conversations, but being very blunt with people. So maybe you have to say to somebody, you know what, if we're friends, I need to be able to tell you how I'm feeling, so that way we can better, relate to one another. Having heart-to-heart conversations also with partners in relationships, especially if you're working with them, it can be hard to kind of separate business and the relationship. So it's possible that you have to be really blunt or very direct. Regardless, you're channeling this energy well, you're communicating well, and you're really adamant about getting your goals kind of vocalized and just like putting it out into the universe and telling people what it is that you're hoping to accomplish and what you're going to be manifesting. Okay, really good for you, Gem. For Cancer and Cancer rising, this is going to be Jupiter going retrograde in your 10th house of career. Cancer, this is a really important time. It's important because it's happening in an angular house. So you're going to be seeing that there's just more eyes on you with Jupiter in your 10th house. Some of you guys have started new jobs. Some of you guys have taken on new positions where you're in control. You're some kind of like managerial person. There's more responsibility for you in some capacity. Now, Jupiter is the ruler of your 6th house of daily routine, health, and also coworkers. It's also the ruler of your 9th house, which deals with law and legality and travel. I feel like for some of you guys, it's about learning laws pertaining to your career, what you can and cannot do, whether it's, what workers' rights are. So you're making sure you're doing everything appropriately and hiring people and making sure that you're going through the process of really training everybody and everything's like up to code and up to standard because it relates to your 6th and your 9th house. I think it can also be about you experiencing delays with travel because there's been so much work on your plate and you haven't been able to go anywhere or do anything. Perhaps maybe there's also been just more of you having to knock out and get some busy work done. Regardless, it's going retrograde in your 10th house. it's going to be whole sign-wise conjuncture midheaven. So that's bringing a lot of attention to expansion in the career. And possibly some of you guys, the only way to get ahead is to hire people or find a new space to be working from. Jupiter in the 10th house is wonderful. It's going to give you the opportunity over this next year. If you want to go bigger in your career, if you want to launch something, you can. But I think that there will be delays. And I also feel like it's really important that you're doing everything to code. Possibly some of you guys might need to be learning something new or getting like a certification or going through a course or some kind of training. So that way you're able to like really work at your best capacity. But basically you're reviewing career expansion and also responsibility, because 10th house is about responsibility. So there's a lot of busy work that's tied to this to be able to make everything work. So for some of you guys, it's like realizing that you need to, that you can become a better boss or a better leader by learning more about delegating tasks and not feeling like you have to do everything. It's like overseeing things, but not doing everything. And that can be quite overwhelming for you right now because you're experiencing lots of change in regards to relationships with other people in general. The card that I get for you is the Six of Swords. So it tells me you're in transition, you're in limbo. Maybe you've been like, well, I've been doing this work all the time and I want to get to be doing that, but I'm kind of like in between. This talks about transition. So you're in a transition. Maybe you're transitioning to a new office. Maybe you're transitioning to a new position, moving on, accepting lessons, learning things about what has come and what has gone. I think for some of you guys, it's going to be you really looking at it going like, okay, do I want to stay in one position where there's delays and I'm experiencing setbacks and I'm not really expanding? For other people, it's like moving on from a job completely and like being in the midst of what can be like a legal situation. The 6th and the 9th house lord can be about lawsuits, injuries on the job, having to return, you know, and go through the whole legal process, or anything in regards to paying for, you know, health related stuff. So some of you guys can be like, I don't want to be in a transitionary job because I need insurance. And you might be feeling like you have to stay somewhere until you get to the new year before you're really ready to launch something. So you're in limbo right now. It might take about 6 months, that's the truth, before you can kind of get through this. Those of you guys who are changing offices, moving and things like that, I think that this is positive. Try to look at this in a much more optimistic way, where you have to make this transition right now in order to kind of feel like things are going to flow a little bit better, okay? For Leo and Leo rising, you have got Jupiter going retrograde through your 9th house, and this is a sister sign. So the retrograde should be a little bit easier for you, to be honest with you, because you're going to be receiving lots of cosmic goodies, especially if you have any placements in Leo within the first 9 degrees, because you'll experience a trine. Now, Jupiter rules your 5th and also your 8th house. So I feel because it's retrograding in your 9th, it's going to be about reevaluating legal stuff, travel, publishing, education, right? All of these things. You're going to see something slow down in regards to these topics. Reevaluating, what do I believe in? Where do I want to go to school? Where do I want to be traveling to? Reworking the bigger plan for your life, right, Aries? A lot of this is happening for you in August. You're seeing this. It's going to feel like it's you against the world, but to some extent, the way to navigate that is trying to focus on a set of beliefs that really align with you. That could be living in a different country. That could be going to school for something totally different. Bringing in a guru. Jupiter going retrograde there should bring in somebody who's going to teach you something about yourself this year and about what it means to really work on your personal beliefs. You might go to a country you've never been to before. You might go back to somewhere also. Jupiter retrograde can bring things back. So if you've gone somewhere that you have visited, you might feel called to be like, I want to go back there. I want to take a trip by myself back there. Or I want to go and do, you know, a course and become a yoga teacher, or train to be able to teach something. I want to go back to writing something, back to teaching. These are likely to happen. And Jupiter rules your 5th house. So reevaluating love and what you believe in terms of love and creativity and happiness, how you're learning how to create your own happiness. And Jupiter also being connected to your 8th house is your philosophies about intimacy and love and romance. Some of you guys might literally go back to somewhere, reconnect to somebody that you had, you know, at a distance, or you travel somewhere and then you hear from somebody that you haven't heard from a while, and that could be triggered because of the travel aspect. If you're thinking about starting a lawsuit, I would say really think it over. You might need some more time until we get to closer to that conjunction point that's going to be taking place in the fall. That might be a better time to wait until before you decide to, you know, file a lawsuit, before you decide to go back to a certain degree that you want to complete, before you decide that, you know, you want to go back to teaching. You might need a little bit more time there. The card that I get for you is the Page of Swords. Messages coming quickly. Finding new ways to kind of communicate and share and express ideas. So this means that you're kind of playing around with the idea of like, do I want to reach out to that person? Do I want to talk about this? You know, do I want to start writing that book? This is the beginning process, and you're really giving yourself the room to kind of play a little bit, feel more inspired. This can be a card that's also about feeling restless. So you're like, okay, I'm going to book something because I'm restless. I need to go somewhere. But I think really this is about the beginning process of you reworking how you think or how you communicate or how you learn. And for those of you guys who are wanting to go back to teaching or wanting to go back to writing something, this is a really positive indication that you're actually going to start the process to doing that. Okay. For Virgo and Virgo rising, Jupiter's going retrograde in your 8th house. Now, the 8th house is a place that can get a little spooky. It's about sometimes our karmic entanglement with other people. It can be about taxes. It can be about money owed, death, inheritance, that kind of stuff. Anything in regards to also insurance, so insurance payouts or things like that. Money owed, though. Now, this is going to be reviewing intimacy, spending, taxes, and what you owe other people or what other people owe you. Aries is a very personal sign, so I think it's interesting that it's going retrograde in the 8th house, which is others, but it's also Mars. So it's like, what do you give other people? What do other people give you? You're really reevaluating this. I could see lots of room for you being willing to finally acknowledge and deal with issues relating to intimacy and where you are afraid to merge with other people, right? Not just in terms of your banking and your resources, but sexually and intimately. Now, Jupiter rules your 4th house, which is about home and family. It also rules your 7th, which is about relationships. And I think a big piece of the puzzle is you're going to be examining, am I just living with people and coexisting and not really like focusing on the intimate relationship? Is there work to do there? It can also be you asking yourself, why do I not live with somebody else? Why am I not aligning with my family? Perhaps maybe through changes in relationships and also changes with your home, you can really start to uncover issues that you have with accepting change and transformation, where you're afraid of it, where you're a little reluctant to share with others, right? And where there has been some hangups with, like, you know, getting a lease with somebody or buying a house or taking out a loan or getting married. Like, there's been some fear revolving around some kind of financial merger. And I think that as you review this, you're going to find that things can come back up for reevaluation. You can realize that 2 is better than 1. That if you are dealing with some debt issues, if you are kind of over your head with a lease, if you're in a relationship and somebody's saying, let's make the jump, you can actually find that it can help you expand in terms of having security because other people can be more generous and they can kind of help you out. Now, possibly harder to get loans, harder to pay off credit cards. You might notice that bills are racking up and you're kind of feeling that in the midst of this transit. If there have been issues with taxes or money that you had to pay back, like especially from the past, like if you owe money to family, if you owe somebody else money, this can be coming up as well. And it's not just about money. It can be about what you give others versus what they take from you. You know, some of you guys are living with other people or you're in relationships with family or whatever, and you're like, I'm constantly putting stuff in. What am I getting out of this? Like, where's the trade-off here? And it can really affect the way that you look at your security in general. So you can kind of feel like your security gets rocked a little bit, emotionally or financially. The card that I got for you is the Sun. So it's highlighting that. I would say go back to Aries season. Ask yourself what was happening March, April. What was being highlighted there for you? You know, we saw the Sun go through there. We saw Venus go through there. Mercury go through there. It all banged up. It hit Chiron. Virgo, you don't really have a lot in common, right? With your 8th house. It creates an inconjunct or a quincunx to you. So where Virgo is very analytical and it thinks everything through and it communicates, Aries is just kind of like crashing through things. It's like a bull in a china shop. So you may feel like you're feeling the effects of recklessness with resources, whether other people have been reckless with resources or your intimacy or how you feel safe. And then you're like a little iffy about this. But the sun is a positive card. It's saying it's going to highlight something. It's going to bring warmth. It's going to bring happiness. So if you have been wanting to go deeper with another person, if you've been wanting to merge with another person, likely that's going to happen. It's going to highlight this. And it's going to bring also an opportunity for more confidence. And I think possibly even like happiness through some more difficult changes that you've been experiencing. Libra and Libra rising, you have got Jupiter going retrograde through your 7th house. So Aries, you know, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, you guys are all having this retrograde in an angular house. So it's going to be more active, right? Much more active, more visible. You're going to see more changes going on than the other signs. So Libra, you got Jupiter going retrograde in your opposite sign. It's going through your 7th house. This is about reviewing relationships and partnerships, right? In particular, people you're married to, people you're dating, business partners, people that you work with, right? So Jupiter rules your 3rd. It also rules your 6th. I could see that this is about how you're reevaluating the way that you communicate issues and delays and breakdowns with other people. You're going to learn to communicate scheduling better because it's happening in your area of relationships. So you reevaluate relationships, what people bring you. But Jupiter rules your 3rd of communication. It's also about learning, traveling, and your 6th house, which deals with your schedule, your daily routine. So I feel like where there's been communication breakdown and issues with relationships because there's been scheduling issues or whatever, or you're not listening to each other, right? This is giving you the opportunity to review it. Now, because it's in an opposite sign, it's also going to be reflecting on you. So it's going to be what you're learning and what's changing in terms of your belief with relationships. Libra, certain relationships can break down. Jupiter is not just this overly positive planet. If a relationship's ending in the midst of this retrograde, it's meant to be cleared out. I could see for some of you guys that's the case because the 6th house can deal with settlements or anything in regards to like, you know, like lawsuits or something that's kind of ending in terms of relationships, and the 3rd house can be documents. So if you're a Libra or Libra rising that's been having issues in relationships, you can be finding, especially if you've been having problems in relationships this spring, bringing yourself back to conversations going, what's not working here? But it can also be restoring your faith in relationships, right? So when Jupiter's direct in your 7th, we have like lots of, you know, like partners that know everything, that want to, you know, communicate and tell us what to do. But it can also be counselors and guides. So for those of you guys who are single, you're reevaluating relationships. People from the past can come back to you. They can be reaching out to you and kind of touching base with you. Those of you guys who are partnered, if you're in a relationship, if things have been intense, you're reevaluating. Where did we learn through some of that conflict? 7th house isn't all, you know, butterflies and rainbows. It's where we hash things out to be able to strengthen relationships. And you can do that through working through that and communicating. Be mindful of your schedule, communicate those issues, and I think that it can actually be really positive for you guys because as you work through some of these things and you learn to kind of get on each other's schedule, you can actually find that you can communicate quite better, honestly. But yeah, Libra rising, you might have people coming back, reaching out to you, especially if you've had issues communicating with like friends. You know, some friends can be 3rd house. Also, anything in regards to a language that you're learning or something that you're teaching or like anything in regards to courses. And for some of you guys, if you've had issues with a sibling, because Jupiter rules your 3rd, they might be trying to reach out to you to hash this out. The card that I get is the 7 of Swords. Oh, Libra. I'm wondering if there's been situations in relationships where partners have not been totally honest with you about stuff. And I think it's about them not communicating what has happened in the past very clearly with you. I think it's also about there being some sense of deception. I don't like saying that, but I'm also just thinking about the fact that there's going to be Mercury retrograde in your sign. You've got the Mars-Uranus conjunctions in your 8th house. Like, there are things that are coming out about relationships that are quite shocking, right? Because Mars rules your 7th. And possibly it can be these like, you know, revelations that you're having and you're like, wait a second, like this person wasn't honest with me. Can I trust them? And I think it can also just be about them not just telling you what you want to hear, but like trying to smooth things over. So I think for some of you guys that it's going to be about working through that and like not forgetting the past, and you want to watch for bringing it up, bringing it up, bringing it up. But if something is unveiled where somebody has not been totally honest with you about something, it may be hard for you to trust them. I hate to say that, but that's the card that I'm getting. So let me know. For Scorpio and Scorpio rising, we have got Jupiter going retrograde through your 6th house. So your 6th house deals with your coworkers, your pets, your daily routine, your health, fitness. Jupiter for you rules your 2nd house and also your 5th. I think because it's happening in your 6th house, it's about reevaluating fitness and whether or not you're feeling good in your body, what you should or should not be eating, because Jupiter rules your 2nd house of what you put in your mouth. And it also rules your 5th house of having fun. So for some of you guys, actually, fitness may go hand in hand with like sports and playing a sport, something you can do on your own. So I think like, you know, Aries being about being independent. Some of you guys might benefit from being like, okay, do I want to go golfing? Do I want to play tennis? Like something that you can do more independently. Running, right? So some of you guys might be reevaluating like, how can I have more fun, you know, while working out? Can be dance classes and other things like that as well. Now, other than reviewing your health routine and your diet, it's also your schedule. And I've seen a lot of Scorpio risings, a little frustrated with work, like wanting work to kind of pick up, and they're wanting to find something that they can align with that feels like it's like their purpose. I do feel with this retrograde, because it's going to dip back into Pisces later this year in your 5th house, that you are going to feel re-inspired. It's going to help you reset something about your schedule. You're going to be feeling much more optimistic. But I'm kind of curious how this is going to work, because Scorpio, this is in your 6th house. So it does deal with how you feel, right? What your personal beliefs are about what you can and cannot accomplish. You want to watch out for kind of getting into like negative thought patterning. You want to make sure that you're making time to develop your own personal talents, that you're making time to have fun. A lot of Scorpio risings are like, where's the love? Where's the romance? Jupiter going through your 6th house has created some issues in relationships because it's 12th to your 7th. And that Mars-Uranus conjunction has been taking place there as well. So I think that this is like you guys not falling back into bad patterns and bad habits, falling off of working out, falling off of your diet because you're being shaken up by some relationship stuff. Equally, as Jupiter retrogrades back into Pisces, it's going to be about reevaluating what it is that you love and what you're willing to take risks on. Many Scorpio risings are going to be more so open to romance and more so open to making changes in their love life and also having children. But right now, some of you guys are like, it's delayed, it's not happening, I don't have time, I have too much work to do. So something about that is going to kind of get worked out. So let's see what the cards say. I get the Page of Pentacles. Some of you guys who knows what this means are probably chuckling to yourself. This is about staying grounded in what you're manifesting. You're planting seeds. So this is planting seeds for what will happen in the future. It's about being ambitious, loyal, consistent, dedicated, and also practical. So be practical about making changes in your diet. Making dramatic changes all at one time is probably not going to happen. Be practical about how you can get into the habit of living a healthier lifestyle. It's not going to be, you know, running 5 miles every day off the bat. It's probably easing your way into it and taking time. This is also talking about like younger people coming into your life. And I've seen this for a lot of Scorpio risings. They're like, I can't do the kid thing. I don't have the money. I don't have the time. But this is kind of reminding you that there's something physically coming into your reality here once Jupiter goes back into your 5th house, because then it's going to start sextiling your 3rd. So look out for that. It's a positive card. It's about maintaining, you know, your goals and staying steadfast, even though you're seeing some delays in that department. All right, so for Sag and Sag rising, you have got Jupiter going retrograde in your 5th house. Sagittarius, Jupiter rules your chart, so pay attention. You're going to notice this shift. Well, is there such thing as a bad Jupiter transit for you? Not, in this case, no, not necessarily. I mean, Jupiter rules your body, it rules your 1st house, and it rules your 4th house of your home. And I think for some of you guys, it is quite literal. It's what's going on with either a pregnancy or a child or a loved one and my living situation. So it's going to vary for everybody. For some of you guys, it's like, okay, I want to get pregnant, but we need to move, right? Jupiter retrograding through your 5th, Jupiter rules your 4th, needing to make space so that way you can expand your family. For some of you guys also, it's reevaluating what you love to do, some kind of hobby or something that you're crafting or you're creating or your own business, and literally needing to make space for that in your home. So it's like, okay, I need an office, or I need a place that I can do all of my things. I can make all of my stuff. But it's also, I think, about how you feel when you're participating in certain hobbies. Now, for others, it's going to be reevaluating your love life and somebody that you're dating, 5th house, and whether or not you want to live with another person, whether you want to move in with them, whether you have more love in your physical home. Can be family as well. I could see how Jupiter going retrograde back into Pisces later this year could be about returning back home, or reevaluating whether or not you want to live with another person, and what your home space kind of like feels like. Some of you guys have been like, have already moved, and you're like, okay, now I need to kind of put my house together. That's the other way that I could look at this. Reviewing creative projects, reviewing the idea and the topic of children, you know, dating. Those of you guys who have been trying to get pregnant, the retrograde can actually bring some kind of positivity there. You might see something kind of peak up during during Leo season. Especially if you're traveling. I could see like you guys going on a trip and then you get pregnant. Some of you guys might be reevaluating anything in regards to also dating. So if you're like, okay, I don't know if I want to get back into dating, Jupiter going retrograde is going to show you whether or not you actually want to be participating in the dating game. I have a hunch though that it's like some of you guys have made a move and then you're like, well, how do I factor somebody else into my life now that I've built this whole life around independence and like not feeling like I need to make my world around another person. Some of you guys are interested in buying your own home or having your own space. So as you're starting to see expansion going on in terms of either your own business or some of your side hobbies, maybe you're making more money, you're going to reevaluate whether or not you can purchase property later this year. I would wait until you have a positive transit there, quite frankly. I think it's not the time. I think it's the time to expand on either dating or creativity or your happiness before you do that, because you're creating your own world before you bring somebody else into it, right? Especially those of you guys who have lived with somebody before and you're like, I'm not doing that again. I could see that. Let's see what the cards say for you, Sag. But yeah, you're going to feel this a little bit more because it's your chart ruler, you and Pisces. The card that I get is the 6 of Cups. I mean, I guess this gets played out. Excuse me, the 9 of Cups. This is the wish card. So it's saying you're going to get what you want. Okay. So whatever it is that you're like thinking about wanting to, you know, launch or wanting to expand, you're going to get it. I feel like with Jupiter going back into your 5th house later in this next year, I feel with the North Node and the eclipses coming there, it's like, what's going to make you happy? Is it going to be starting your own business? Is it going to be, you know, learning guitar and performing and being on stage? Is it going to be having a child? Like, what is it that you're nurturing and that you're like really tuning into that's going to be really highlighting your talents? That's what I want you to ask yourself right now, right? Because 9 of Cups is saying in the end, you're going to get it. Very positive card, very harmonious, wish fulfillment. It's like everything comes together. It's about recognition of your achievements as well. And so I feel like this is going to be about you really showing something that you're proud of. So the question is, what is that? Is it your home that you've redesigned? Is it a baby that you have? Is it a successful business? Whatever it is, it's going to work, but you kind of have to get the emotions on track. That's the feeling that I'm getting, or make the space within your home to do this. For Capricorn and Capricorn rising, Jupiter's going retrograde through Sagittarius, and that's going to be happening through your through Aries. Capricorn's like, what? Jupiter's going retrograde through Aries, through your 4th house. There we go. So 4th house, you're reviewing your home, your roots, your family, your country of origin, something about maybe returning home for some of you. There can be a couple of different ways this can play out. So for Capricorn risings, it can be things relating to the mother or the homeland or through a parent. So some of you guys have been trying to find somewhere for your parent to live, trying to find care for a parent, trying to figure out, do I need to go home? Okay. Because it's the ruler of not just your 12th, but it's also the ruler of your 3rd. So you're having to communicate with family or siblings if there are concerns about taking care of the health of a parent. I have seen that some people have lost a parent or a grandparent through this transit. If you have to go home for whatever reason, I think it can be a good thing because there can be a lot of like clearing of the air, being able to communicate with extended family or siblings. I also think that you are going to be reevaluating your home or your roots in some way. Capricorn, it's impossible for that not to happen. Even as Jupiter retrogrades back into Pisces later this year to go into your third, and you're having to figure out if you need to move or you're needed to communicate more about how you're feeling emotionally, or if you're stressed or you're worried with somebody else. Could be a neighbor, could be a sibling. To me, this seems like Capricorns are realizing they're going to have to move, or that they're going to have to make a change in their home life or their routines. It's just kind of like inevitable. I could see for some of you guys, it's about reviewing or reflecting on the past and learning not to dwell on the past, or learning not to constantly think about it or talk about the past, and learning to combat fears in the ways that you communicate, because it rules your 12th and your 3rd house. Now, if you guys do have to go home for some reason, or if you do have to be reevaluating a home expansion, or if you're rethinking whether or not you want to purchase a home, that could be happening as well. If you've been in the process of like renovating or having an addition to your home, it could take a little bit longer. It could take longer to get permits and things also in regards to being able to have that build out. The laws might be changing where you're living, right? Or the rent or something in regards to property can be changing as well. And you might be reevaluating, like, do I really want to do this? Do I want to stay here in this situation? I think that how you're communicating with family is going to come up, or how you're communicating with neighbors as well. And I would look for that. I think it can also just have you just very emotional. You know, Jupiter retrograde in the 4th house is like, where is home? Where am I supposed to be? What is family supposed to be like? And there's like a lot of like rehashing the past. And there can be some fears about talking about worst case scenarios. Like, what if we have to move? What if we have to move a parent to hospice? And these things will come up. Both the 3rd and the 4th house also sometimes have connections to vehicles or transportation or getting around. So another theme could be like, you know, reevaluating, does it make sense to move, or do I get a new car, right? Or am I moving somewhere that's not going to, you know, it's going to be easier for me to take some other kind of transportation. The card that I get is the 10 of Pentacles. I have a feeling this is about you communicating with family and becoming aware of just family financial situations. Maybe you're talking to them more about wills and estates, and God forbid something were to happen, what your responsibility would be, maybe what's being left to you, what you're having to deal with, deeds and wills and all that stuff. But this is about legacy, right? So this is about what is being left, whether that's like your name, or that's some kind of like family work or something like that, privilege, ancestry, long-term success. So this is positive. I mean, you know, keep in mind, Jupiter's going to come back to this part of your chart in the new year, and then we're going to see eclipses that start happening in your 4th house. So many of you guys will find out you're inheriting property, or that there is a family business, or that there is a house that is going to be under your name that you might, you know, share with siblings. Something like that will happen. And you may have to go back there to deal with some of these things, or you may have to deal with business, but overall it's supposed to be abundant. It's something to kind of keep things going. So there's some legacy that you're going to continue, or a way that you're going to be able to honor your family. For Aquarius and Aquarius rising, Jupiter is going retrograde in the sign of Aries, and that's happening in your natal 3rd house. So your 3rd house is communication, gadgets like phones, computers. It's about language and communication with neighbors. It can be about siblings, short distance travel, things of that nature. I think it's interesting that it's going retrograde here. It's making positive aspects to your sign. It's helping you be more positive and more optimistic about setting boundaries with other people and being assertive, really walking the walk and talking the talk. Jupiter rules your 2nd house of money and resources, and your 11th house of goals. So I feel like you're much more optimistic about talking to people and telling people your goals and where you're going in life, and sharing this with friends, and learning more about money and resources, and really building on your self-esteem. Journaling can be a wonderful exercise. Mantras can be really great. Breath work, going for walks and like listening to things that are really inspirational can be good as well around your neighborhood. I think Jupiter going retrograde is like rethinking and reworking the way that you see your neighborhood and the people that you interact with. But as it sextiles Saturn, you're going to start getting a feeling for like, do I want to stay here or am I going somewhere else? Now, eventually Jupiter will retrograde back into your second house, which is going to be about money and resources. So you're going to see a little bit more abundance there. Perhaps maybe you're bringing money in because of something that you've been teaching or something you've been writing or like an online business that you started. But I think it's going to be about reworking your beliefs and how you talk about yourself or how you speak about yourself. And also rethinking anything in regards to travel and education. Now, you might be talking to friends more about ways to make money. That's the other thing I could see, or ways that you can be able to bring in more gains, especially through some kind of group funding in some capacity, because it also connects to your 11th house. And I think you're just really trying to, in spite of all of the things that are going on, remain optimistic and be talking about the future and how positive some of these changes are for you, because it's not been easy having Saturn in your sign. You have eclipses going on in your 10th and in your 4th house. South Node's going through your 4th house. Your title is changing. Uranus in the North Node in your 4th is like your home is changing, and you have to be like, okay, these things are good. Whatever is changing right now, it's for the better, and I know it's going to work out, and I'm remaining positive. Get into the habit of maybe making a list of things that you're thankful for, and making a list of things that you're manifesting for yourself is the advice that I would give you. And be reminding yourself that the universe is constantly in support of you, and it's helping you through this process of change. And be really kind in the way that you communicate with yourself. You got to catch yourself when you're being really hard on yourself. It's very, very important during this transit, because it's helping you rework the way that you speak to yourself. The card that I got for you is Temperance. I mean, it's literally saying like, not yet. Take some time. Just really think about this. I think it could be about a move. I think it could also just be about giving yourself a little bit of a break, waiting for certain things to kind of, alchemize and kind of come together, reworking things that you're thinking about before you speak up about it, not counting your chickens before they hatch, especially financially, right? There's like some feelings that things are coming into fruition, but you got to wait. Patience, serenity, tranquility. This can be about healing as well. Healing words and thoughts. But this is telling me certain things have to come together first. So I think some of you guys know as Jupiter retrogrades into your second, you're like, okay, there's some money on the way, something's coming, but I can't quite make these plans yet. So be careful what you're telling people is going to be manifesting, because it may have a different timeline than what you're anticipating is the feeling that I'm getting. So be open to reworking communication, your thoughts. Give yourself time, right? Slow down a little bit, because there's certain things that need to come together before you can move forward with some of these things. And now we've got Pisces and Pisces rising. So Pisces, you are also ruled by Jupiter. You're going to feel this retrograde. Jupiter is going retrograde in the sign of Aries. It's retrograding through your second house of income, resources, your spending power, your self-esteem, your talents. Pisces, even though it's a retrograde involving your chart ruler, I'm not mad at it, because it's going to retrograde through your second house, go into your first, come back into your second house. So it does say that there is some need to reevaluate your spending, your personal finances, your self-worth, your talents. Now, Jupiter doesn't just rule your first house of self and body, but it also rules your 10th house of career. So to me, it seems like you're reevaluating, what are my talents? What do I have to offer? What are new ways that I can make money? What am I launching in terms of my career? What do I believe in? Do I believe in myself? I think all eyes are still on you in the midst of a retrograde. I think that this can be about reworking the way that you look at what you're doing for a living, and maybe there's some kind of shift there. You're going to be more adamant about wanting to bring in your own resources. And you'll see this continue pretty much all the way through the next couple of years as eclipses start happening in your second house. But I have this feeling that there is like this reawakening of certain talents that have been dormant for some time. There may be a sense of also recovering money and resources that you were waiting to get back, or things that were going to be paying off. So if you've put new work out into the world, if you've started a new position, if you've launched a business and you're waiting to see that money come in, the retrograde could actually bring that. I think you will see that, especially during some of the retrogrades happening in the fall. It is your spending power. So where money's been coming in, you might feel it kind of slows down or it tapers off a little bit. But I'm not really seeing any financial issues here. I think you're just going to be looking at, okay, I've brought this money in. Now what am I doing with it? Am I spending too much? Am I eating too much? Am I drinking too much? There can be a sense of overdoing things with Jupiter. And really looking at your personal finances and your self-worth. So you might be kind of going like, I don't need to have things, I need to have experiences. Jupiter will dip back into Pisces and it'll go into your first house. So it's then going to be about, have I been eating too much? Have I put on weight? Have I been trying to accumulate too much, and like, is it not bringing me happiness? Because Aries does need this sense of being lighter and being free. So you might actually start eating differently. So you're feeling a little bit, more mobile. It might be that you don't want as many things and you want to give things away and you want to have more freedom to be able to pick up and move, right? So there might be a sense of giving actual objects away. Look for uncovering talents that are being reawakened. Look for new opportunities to see ways to expand your career, to bring more money in. I think when Jupiter goes direct and we start to see some transits going through both Sagittarius and also like Aries, it'll be the end of this year. And then again, the spring of next year, you're going to see more accumulation of cash. You're going to have more spending abilities. But yeah, reevaluating your self-worth too, and like realizing that you're worth more, that you can charge more, that you can up your salary, or that you can bring more in. And it's all really related to your self-worth and what you feel like you're capable of achieving, right? Card that I get is the Page of Swords again. So the very beginning process of communicating and expressing this, perhaps maybe there's like negotiations, like salary negotiations, because Jupiter rules your 10th house, that you're like renegotiating what you could get paid, if you're renegotiating the terms of like a contract, or like, being able to get bonuses, or, hitting certain goals and you're getting like percentages back. I think this is also how you communicate and how you're thinking, right? The very beginning process of that, and that there is this thirst for communicating, expressing to people what you want or what you're learning or what talents you're developing. So perhaps you start sharing this with people. This can also be about clarity. So finding clarity in regards to how you feel about money or the kind of financial situations that you've got going on. If you've been spending too much, you're going to get clarity on that. You might be cutting or slashing things too, like slashing certain things in relation to spending, because this is a sword. Okay? If you're into teaching or writing or anything of that nature, this can also be really positive, because it can be saying that that's another way that you can be bringing in more resources. All right, guys. Hopefully that was helpful. Let me know, like, where is this Jupiter retrograde taking place for you? How is it affecting you? Do you feel like there is strong connections to Chiron, even though Chiron is, quite a ways away? It's not entirely too close. But I think that there's something to both of these being retrograde, in that a lot of us are having to reevaluate, where are we settling? Where are we selling ourselves short? Where are we not actually getting up and making the changes that we need to be making? And where do we benefit by having more faith and being a little bit better motivated? I'll touch on this again when Jupiter goes back into Pisces. So we'll come back to this in the fall. And I'm excited to see what kind of manifests. So you guys let me know. Give me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment. Otherwise, I will see all of you very soon. And enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.